Don't talk to strangers, unless your mother needs you to. Despite being shy, you need to overcome your problems to help your mother when she needs you. Hello, I welcome you to my channel. Today I have prepared for you a dive into the game called Leftover. Be warned because this video will contain spoilers for the game. With that out of the way, Leftover is an indie horror game that I found on the internet. So a big shout out to the guys who worked on the project, and the download link will also be in the description. And by the way, the game is also free. I thank you for tuning in and I hope you will enjoy the video, because I try to do my best to portray you the ominous world of Leftover. So let's start. As you take control of the nameless kid, the game just throws you into the living room of the small family. From there you can immediately see the nice and distinct art style the game has. The whole color palette is black and white, with the lights illuminating parts of the apartment for atmospheric feel. You hear that your mother is calling you, or better to say you can read it, because the game doesn't contain any voice acting, besides grunts and a few other noises. As you headed towards her, you hear certain slicing sounds like she was cooking and preparing a meal. You see your mother only from the back. She is looking like she was maybe a Amish from the looks, but this wasn't explained in the game, so it's only my speculations. The character models are flat 2D images placed into a 3D world. But this is enough of the technical details. Let's start with the story, because this is where the game really shines. Your mother states that she cooked too much today and asks you if you would be so kind to bring the leftovers to the neighbors so they don't go to waste. A pretty easy task, but the problem is that the character, the small boy, has a bit of social anxiety. Why? Sadly, this isn't explained in the game, so we can only assume it is just because he's a kid and he's probably just shy. You can also answer questions in the game by nodding left and right for a no or up and down for a yes. Back to the request. We won't disappoint our mother, so we'll try to fulfill the task she set upon us. But then she states a logical thing, and it's even if she doesn't want you usually to speak to strangers, this time is an exception. Kind of odd if you ask me. Then one line comes up which really gave me a question mark. Don't be like your dad. What she meant by that? What did dad do? Nevertheless, we pick up the leftovers she packed for us and we start to do our job to hand deliver the leftover boxes to the neighbors. With an unsettling feel we make our way out. This is where the game starts to become weird, because the game Leftover will tap into many odd subjects along its short time we spend with it. As you walked out the apartment, an ominous synth music starts playing in the background. This merged perfectly with the style of the game has, so the atmosphere was set. This is also the music I'm using currently in the video, so I'm just giving the credits to the maker. The first neighbor was a nice old lady. She was really happy that we dropped by and gave her the leftovers. But as we go lower, as we live on the 8th floor of an apartment building, it starts to escalate pretty quickly. One more thing to notice is the simple fact you're a child, everybody looks like a giant to you, and it's really unsettling when they start coming close to you. Then we went to the next neighbor. As we knocked on the door, we hear his steps as he coming closer. We saw his face with a surprise. Why would a kid knock on his door? Then he asked the question if you are the kid from the mother above. But then he recognizes you and asks you if he could smell you. What was really disgusting and gross. His face had a distinct look to it, and it made it even weirder. After that event you freaked out and proceed to run back to the apartment, saying to your mother you can't continue this. The mother is still slicing and preparing dinner, and tells you that you need to proceed with the task she asks of you. Heading out with our small steps to continue the journey, we saw that one of the neighbors is taking a shower, so we skipped them. Maybe we can come back later. So the question is, the next neighbor we will encounter, would it be a nice lady or again a weird creep? But to your pleasant surprise, it was an old grumpy man who just wanted to be left alone. He said to you, you can leave the leftovers in front of his door and he will pick it up later. Then we go to the next neighbor. As you knocked on the door, again you hear footsteps. You see a lady with a sinister smile. looking down on you. Helpless and innocent, you just wanted to hand over the leftovers. But then she asks you if you want to go in and rest for a bit. Not sure of the intentions, you went in. The things you witnessed and felt were too much to process. You went out crying with a mental scar for life. You ran terrified back to your mommy. But your mom wasn't happy. She asked you, why are you back again? And are you doing this on purpose to make her mad? Then she stated that you probably did something you weren't supposed to do and tells you don't poke your nose into some things that can get you in trouble. Like your dad. A sentence you will remember. This is also the point I wanna slide in the bad ending, because the game has two different endings, a good one so to say and a bad one. The good one I will mention at the end, but now about the bad one. If you go 4 times back to your mommy will turn on you and say you're useless like your dad. So this how the game could be ended before you make it to the real twist. It is really terrifying to think that a mother would turn on a child and show him what real terror is. With no other choice, once again you make yourself on your way. Again, some neighbors weren't at home, but on the 4th floor you saw an open door. You hear some grunting like someone is in terrible pain. You leave the leftovers on the doorstep as you saw your neighbor crawling to the food as he shuts the door. Who was he and why was his door open? Was he some kind of freak or just maybe a guy who had an accident? Sadly, the game doesn't tell you. On the next door you hear some dog barking and you offer the man the food. He was really happy and thanked you for the food, but what you saw across him terrified you quite a bit. An old man without an arm covered in bandages with a knife. He proceeds to tell you he found his dead wife with a knife in her throat. This is the time where you need to answer correctly, because a wrong question could lead you to a catastrophic end. He asked many weird questions, like if it's wrong for an innocent person to get murdered. As he looked at you with one open eye, with a dead glare, you of course nodded yes. Pleased with the answer, he asked you more questions like should a murderer be punished even if the murderer is your mom? Not quite sure what the old man meant with such weird questions. But somehow you managed to wiggle out yourself of the conversation. The weird man states that you don't want your mom to be punished even if she was a murderer is very hypocritical of you. Whatever that word meant, it feels like he is knowing something, but you didn't quite figure out what did he meant. The next neighbor was a young woman which greets you with a smile because she was new to the neighborhood and she was so surprised that somebody knocked and came by. After you gave her the food, she tells you that something is a bit off and she doesn't want to upset you but states that the meal is looking kind of slimy. She goes back in the apartment and then she starts to scream. As she is screaming, is that an eyeball? She shuts the door tight. What did she mean by that? Why was she terrified? But you also need to check out the door of the big girl who always harasses you. You were scared, but you managed to deliver the leftovers. She states how she was also stealing the dog's food. She was definitely a evil girl and not a nice playmate to have. You also tricked one neighbor into paying for the leftovers. He wasn't happy, but hey. Then you went to the next floor. You went to the apartment where somebody was showering. You saw that the lady was already waiting for you. She asks you, why are you alone? And you give her the last box of food. Then the nice lady proceeds to call your mom, stating that your dad is so happy to have a woman like her. The woman answered with, what do you mean with was? Then she tells to your mom, did he finally told you about us with a sinister laugh. After a bit, the woman runs into an apartment and runs up with a knife, threatening to kill you because of the so-called leftovers. You run away to your mother and go into your apartment where your mother is already waiting for you and states you need to stay back because she had some leftover business to do. And you see the end screen with a question mark. So that was Leftover. Is Leftover something to recommend? Considering the length of the game, yeah, it's a 30 megabyte half-hour experiments with a weird concept and design. It's very simplistic, but I wouldn't say that's a negative thing about the game. But to be honest, the game was somehow predictable from the start to me, because she stated like you're dead. I somehow had that feeling of what's going on. But did that take away from the charm of the game? Well, no, I had an unsettling feeling throughout the whole game, because in the fact that I was aware of what I'm carrying and delivering, I was quite anxious, because I didn't know how the neighbors will react to the food boxes. The things that did surprise me were the neighbors, who were a bunch of sickos and weirdos. It definitely sends a message that kids should not be left alone with strangers. Now, the fact that your mom killed your dad because of the relationship with the neighbor was also not quite expected, especially the part where she chased you with a knife. That was a horrifying scene. The only question remains, who was the old guy with the knife, and how did he predict the whole situation, what was happening? And also the fact you can choose yes and no to some questions was also okay options, but in the end it doesn't bring that much to the game. I hope we will see a sequel to the game because of the question mark in the end. I mean, the end raises many questions, and also how the whole situation is impacting the kid. Of course, the mother had a mental breakdown after discovering her man cheating with a neighbor. But to kill him and cook him and send the leftovers to the whole neighborhood was another level of madness. One more question pops out: what will the mother do after she encounters the mistress? And will the weird neighbor step in? Many questions are left in my opinion. But what are your thoughts about the game? Leave me a comment down below. As always, thank you for watching. If you want to help the channel, check out my Patreon for special perks. Remember to like and share and subscribe, and I see you in the next one. Snorky over and out.